Morning. Happy Thursday. The week is almost over. I hope everyone has made their best efforts to make this week a good one. Um, I had a conversation about some people this week and had a really dope interview with somebody yesterday regarding, prison system, mass incarceration, and the one parallel between the two is how great your family background impacts really what you're going to be one day, whether you have a career in a particular area or whether you are continuing your family legacy and going back and forth to prison. I want to share a story about a cousin of mine. We're about 6 months apart. He's 6 months older than me. Our mothers are sisters, and my mom's the baby, and his mom's 2 years older than my mom. In the 80s when crack hit hard, right? And so, so many of our family members were on crack. And at the time, they didn't really know the impacts of what that drug could do. It was a party drug, and they didn't realize the impact that it would have on their lives and their family lives and their bodies in general. And so my aunt, as well as other family members, became addicted to drugs. But more in particular, my aunt, she, ended up moving to California, Texas, back and forth. And, ultimately she had my cousin. And so his father was in prison and she's on drugs. And so she's in and out and all over the place. And so he came to live with my grandmother. We were young. He may have been 4 or 5. I'm not sure. But he was really young. And he didn't have his mom. He didn't have his dad. I shared this story before, him living with my grandparents and, him often getting the police card on him, not for any crimes, but because he simply wouldn't listen. But I want you to understand that type of impact that has. Both of your parents are in the prison system. So that is that immediate abandonment just when you are really getting some type of memory and knowing who you are in the world, knowing who the people are that's around you. The two most important people that should be there aren't there. And so my cousin had a continuous lifelong journey of being in and out of jail confinement of some sort, starting with the DH, and then once he reached age 18, going to jail. A lot of it was for drugs, a lot of it was for robbery and theft. But I do believe if his parents had not been in the prison system, I think life would have been a little bit different for him. And now he is 39 years old. He'll be 40 in a couple of weeks, and he's still on that continued path. He just was released again from prison maybe a couple of years ago, but he had that. And then we had my father, and then other uncles that had a revolving door of being in and out of prison for various crimes. And these were the examples in his life. We had aunts that were in prison. These were his examples. And it's not to say that we didn't have good examples. My grandparents, my grandma, she worked and retired from Ford Motor Company. My grandfather worked and retired from National Gypsum. And at the time, in the 80s and the 90s, working at these factories, as you know, were very profitable and really helped Black families become successful. So, though my grandparents were doing well, my cousin had examples all around him of people going in and out of prison for various crimes. And, I remember, as him getting in trouble for listening to the Dove Shack and listening to Tupac and listening to Snoop. But I remember him saying as a kid, like, he was relatable to Tupac because Tupac's mother was on drugs. He didn't know his father. And so I remember like we were in elementary school and that's when it started. That's when that I'm just going to keep getting in trouble. We're in school. He can't sit still. He's walking up to people randomly, just punching them. Once he gets to middle school, he's taking bullets to school and showing them to people. But it was this continuous, I need to be seen. And I truly wish that, at that time, someone realized, how deep those issues went and got him the help that he needed. And unfortunately, they didn't. And so now he's practically 40 years old. He has no stability, and it's this expectation of people. And people that have people that's been in prison, when people go to prison, they have this expectation of you. They expect you to do their time with them, regardless of whether they're a friend, family member, significant other. They expect you to do that time with them. And I remember, doing that time with my cousin all throughout DH. I'm writing letters. He's calling. I'm calling people on three-way. Through his first several prison stints, I'm calling people on three-way for him. And my mom's sending him care packages. But I remember probably the time before the last time, I'm not helping anymore. Listen, like even now, like I'm practically 40 years old. I'm not going to prison with you no more. I have a life. And a lot of times people that are confined, they don't realize that people have lives outside of them because they're in prison. And they don't realize the capacity of what you're doing outside of the walls. And so we had this huge disagreement in our family yesterday because my cousin, sent a GoFundMe link that he created for himself to the family group chat, and then, was upset with the response from family members. Now, I know you guys have seen me share the GoFundMe for my godmother whose building blew up, right? And so I felt like, and then you saw me running for mayor, and so people wanting to donate to my campaign. And so I feel like he saw, okay, Hillary ran for mayor, and he thought people in the family was donating to the campaign. They weren't. But, he's like, Hillary ran for mayor, they're helping her. Sandy Pooh's building blew up, and they're helping her. Let me create a GoFundMe so that I can get help. Instead of being a man and standing on his own too and working and get a job to provide for himself, he's solely relying on the help of people continuously. But that's that mentality of a man that goes to prison, or a person that goes to prison. It's never truly being released from confinement because no one ever took the time to get to the root of the issues of why you were getting in trouble. And I really feel like the root of the issue of why he was getting in trouble and why I feel like he's mentally a 20-year-old versus 40 is because no one took the time. And no one took the time to break that curse, because that's absolutely a curse. That will be the legacy of my family if no one takes the time to break it, which I do for my own children. But no one takes the time to break that. And so that continuous revolving door of men in my family going in and out of prison continue to happen. And that mentality of I'm supposed to be taken care of, because it's not just him, with the exception of my father, and, sprinkle some cousins and stuff here and there. A lot of the men in my family have this expectation that they're supposed to be taken care of and provided for. And when you don't give them those tools and the resources that they need, I'm not a part of this family, you guys hate me. But that's that mentality that no one took the time to break. And I say that there's parallels in that conversation because my cousins and everybody's getting in trouble. They're cussing my cousin out in the group chat. And I tried to tell them, I think we need to be a little bit more kinder to him and understand it, because I understand the mechanics behind why he's like that. And so it really clicked with me yesterday when I had an interview with this young man, and he's younger than me, but he had the same family experiences growing up. He didn't know who his grandfather was. His father was in prison. His brother had been killed due to gun violence. His aunt had been killed due to gun violence. His uncle had been killed due to gun violence. And he was in the streets. It was cool for him. He was being arrested at a very young age for guns and different things. And so by the time he turned 19 years old, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison, and which followed by other prison stints. And I asked him, if your father was in your life and your family dynamic was a little bit different, would you have gone to prison? And he said no. And so that leads me to a conversation that I had with someone else earlier in the week who's been in prison and did a very long stint in New York in prison. And he said his father was in prison, his grandfather was in prison. And so with him spending that long stint, he said, if maybe his life circumstances were different, he wouldn't have went to prison. And I say all that to say, your family background contributes to what's going to happen with your children. So I know that mass incarceration is a system designed by the government to, continue to have certain groups of people imprisoned to make money. Because one thing the young guy told me, he said, I asked him what different type of programs, to ensure that he didn't return to prison, whether he went to school or something in prison. And he said he did flooring in prison, but he didn't get a certificate or anything to help him upon release. That was just to, put flooring down in the prisons, and he was paid 50 cents an hour. And so I think not only do we have to change our family dynamics, we also have to change things and provide resources within the prison system. Because maybe if this young man had some type of certification or something upon his release, life would have been a little bit easier. Maybe if the first time my cousin was released from prison and there was some sort of program, because my cousin is smart, he's smart as a whip, but it's something there that's not helping him mechanically. So maybe if he had some type of resources upon his release, maybe he would be in a different place today. I hate to see that there's so many Black men that are dynamic, that are smart, intelligent, have so many ideas, continue to rely on women. And I'm not saying all men, I'm not saying all Black men at all, but a lot of the ones that I know in my family and others that I have interviewed, there's a constant rely on the women and their families to provide. I think first you need to break those curses, and that's what I do every day. I break all generational curses before me so that my boys could go on to build a brand new legacy that will affect generations after us, that my grandkids will be rich for what we're doing today. I say that every morning over my boys, in addition to other things. I think that's first. I think we have to be grounded in what our belief system is. We have to really know what our foundation is. We really have to know what we stand on. That's number one. And then we have to, push our legislators to change laws and ensure that there's things in place in the prison systems that is ensuring that the recidivism rate is low, because that's what, prison is supposed to be rehabilitation, right? So we need to ensure that the recidivism rate is low by giving them programs, tools, and techniques to use upon release that they can use upon release. We have to change a system in which that they have a right to vote once they're released, so they can be a part of the process determining who's going to lead them. We need to change things. We need to override the system. Things need to change within our family dynamics. We need to stand on certain things and refuse to tolerate certain things from our children. As parents, we need to be a part of the school system to ensure that our children isn't part of that school to prison pipeline. We need to stand in the gap. When a teacher says something, we need to say, no way. We need to stand up in the way. We need to ensure that the principals know us. When I walk in the building, the principals know who I am. They grab me, they say hi, they hug me, they know exactly who I am, because my boys are little and I'm not going to allow that to happen to my children. I pray, I break the curse, but I'm also doing the work to ensure that that doesn't happen to my children. I think us as parents, we need to do that to protect our children and to protect the legacy of our family. Just because your uncle or your grandfather and your dad was in prison is not an excuse for you. One thing that I can credit my mother for is that college was not an option. I had to go regardless. and I don't know why, but I'm grateful for her. I'm grateful for that, because had I stayed home, who knows, especially the place where I was mentally at 18. Sure, I don't think I was ready to go out on my own. I don't think I was ready to leave home. But where I was at mentally, who knows what would have happened had I stayed home. So on today, I implore you guys to really do a little bit more as parents, and those that's doing great. But I think it's important to have conversations with your babies. I think you can be transparent with your kids. I don't think their ears are too young to hear certain things. You need to be honest with your kids about why you're doing something and why you want to ensure their safety and ensure the safety of their future. I think that's so important, and I think it's important to have conversations. I think it's important to talk to your children and your friends, your friend group, about voting, and not going off of memes or something that you've seen on social media, but actually doing research and talking about the legislators that are currently in place, and look up races that are coming up. 2024 election is coming up. We have to be better. And in order to be better, we have to do better. We have to do the legwork. We got to take the time. We have to research. We have to have friends that have more knowledge than us, that can give us wisdoms in areas where we're lacking. We have to have a support team. Your significant other has to support you in all your endeavors. You have to have a team around you and a family members around you that want to ensure success for your life and the life of your children. And so I didn't mean to rant, but just thinking about my cousin and my family, and then talking to this young man yesterday, it just breaks my heart, because it's absolutely a system designed against us. But we got to stand up against the system. We cannot use that as our only excuse. We got to stand up against it. We have to override it. We have to go vote. We have to vote for people in place, not because we think that they're giving us Trump checks. We have to vote for people that actually care about certain systems and certain communities of people, and not just caring about fattening their own pockets or caring about their own careers. We actually have to put people in place. Everything that I talk about is always going to go back to voting, because voting matters. Voting is going to dictate how you live your life, how your family lives their life. And when you're no longer here and your great grandchildren are living here, who you vote for today is going to impact that. People talk about Biden and he did all of this, the things he voted for a long time ago. That's impacting today. So I encourage you to make a change within your family. I encourage you to be a little bit more educated in terms of voting rights and your civil duties. I just encourage you to do more, okay? Happy Thursday. I'm going to give the rest of your day back. You guys have a good one. And remember, there's really people going through real life. You never know what somebody is going through internally, even when they have a smile on their face. I encourage you to do a little bit better, to love one another a little bit more, and to see in what ways that you can help people. Impact the world. Go do something. You guys have a good one.